Welcome to the I Love Coaching podcast, where we believe coaching solves everything.
Welcome back, everybody, to the I Love Coaching podcast. I am your host today, Adam Roach, and today we are ending our month at the I Love Coaching headquarters of health and wellness with Mr. Mike Batla, who is a doctor of chiropractic health. And what's really neat about this is I can't wait to listen to how you straighten everybody up, because no one in our company can straighten anybody out, my friend. That was a bad dad joke. But I'm excited to have you on, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Adam, for having me. I'm honored to be here. And I hope that what we talk about is helpful to the people that are listening.
You know, I have no doubt it will be. So in true I Love Coaching fashion, podcast wise, we always ask the question, you were born and then what happened? So fill us in on who you are.
So I was born, I lived in Northern Virginia, the DC area, pretty normal upbringing there until I was about 5 years old. Mm-hmm. My dad was an attorney. He was in energy, and he became obsolete overnight. And long story short, that took us overseas. And so he took his law firm, well, not his law firm, but the law firm overseas to Prague, where we lived for 2 years. Oh. And, so we lived there for 2 years, and this is in the 1990, around then, and the communism was being forced out. You know, there was a lot of stuff going on, and he was in energy law, so he was trying to help regulate energy law and regulations and things like that. But one of the things that was going on was the air quality there was so bad that all of us ended up getting nitric oxide poisoning and all kinds of stuff. So we ended up having to relocate so he could commute. So we moved to London, and we lived there for 5 years, and he was able to commute to Prague. It was kind of crazy and really cool opportunity. You know, I had tons of freedom for a kid of, such a young age and all of that kind of stuff. I used to skateboard to school. I could use the subway, or the tube as they call it. I knew it like the back of my hand. You know, it was a really cool place to live and grow up. And then we moved back 5 years later to the States, which was kind of tough. I mean, I was used to all this freedom. So I turned into a really rebellious kid, and I ended up getting into a lot of trouble, and that's a whole nother podcast. We'll leave my record out of this, but so I got in a lot of trouble in my teenage years. I'd gotten into partying and, that kind of stuff. And that carried into undergrad. I went to WVU in West Virginia. It was the only place that would take me. My grades were so bad at that point. And, I had a good time, but I wasn't getting much done. And, it was the most random thing. I was in my dorm room freshman year, and I saw this infomercial by Kevin Trudeau. I don't know if you've heard of him or not. He came out with this book, I guess this would have been 2005, called Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About. And he was doing this infomercial, and it was like 3 a.m. on like a Thursday or something in the dorm room. I just happened to catch this infomercial, and it really just hit me hard, like a ton of bricks. And, so he was talking about all these, diseases that we're told are uncurable according to Western medicine, and how there's actual natural cures to them. And that totally, shifted my perspective. And around that time, I ended up meeting a chiropractor when I was home in Virginia visiting. He ended up becoming my mentor. So I started spending time in his office, and, in the summertime and breaks from school and stuff like that, and just getting exposed to what he was doing. And he did a lot of chiropractic and advanced different techniques and energy medicine and acupuncture and a lot of nutrition. And I was into working out and fitness, but I was, kind of lost as to what to do with it. Right. And he really guided me, and I ended up working for him. And then, one day I was working for him, and he said, this is right up your alley. If you go to school, when you get out, you got a job. And that's all I needed to hear. I transferred from West Virginia because quite frankly, I just wasn't focused there. I needed to get out of there. Yeah. And I moved to Atlanta to kind of fast track my undergrad and finish that stuff up and start chiropractic school. And then I ended up transferring from there to Dallas, Texas, to another school, finished all that stuff out. And I ended up moving to New Jersey after school, where he was opening a new practice at the time. And that's where he's originally from. Gotcha. And so I my plan was to work there 3 to 5 years, learn everything I could, earn some money, save some money, and then eventually open up my own shop. Okay. And so that was the plan. And that 3 to 5 years turned into 11 months. And wow. For a lot of reasons, it just wasn't a good fit. And I knew it was going to be difficult going into it, but it was just not sustainable. So I sat him down, and I gave him a 6-week notice, which was like the hardest decision I'd made to that point, because I was really committed, and I consider myself a hard worker. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And I'm not a quitter, but
Sure.
I just knew I had to go. And he said something to me that I took offense to at the time, but now I totally understand. And he said to me, "You're not ready." He said, "You're not ready right now. You could be ready in 3 years. And that's too bad you don't want to stay, because, if you stayed, you're looking at something very, very different." And he was, referring to, more pay or better hours or whatever it was. Right. And I just decided that I was going to do it no matter what and figure it out. Right. And you coach a lot of entrepreneurs, and you are an entrepreneur. So I'm sure you can understand how all that feels very well.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy at the time that was trying to open up a practice in Charleston. And he was practicing with his dad, who's a longtime chiropractor, and they had practices in Maryland, Virginia, and Pennsylvania that were established.
Wow.
But they had relocated down in Mount Pleasant and wanted to establish a home base here. And so we all went into business together. And I guess the lesson there is don't go into business with friends. And it, ended up not working out over a couple of years, which is fine. Another blessing. And I've been on my own since about, I guess, 2016 or so, completely on my own, independent. And I've had a couple different locations in Mount Pleasant. And, really over this last 3 years or so, it's just been growing and growing and growing, and it's taken off. And it's been really cool experience, kind of just starting from scratch and just clawing my way through and figuring it out.
Yeah.
So
Gosh.
that's kind of where I'm at.
Great. We're all done. Well, thank you for listening to the I Love Coaching podcast. That was awesome. That was a great answer to you were born and then what happened.
Cool.
I want to go back to the infomercial. I'm going to tell you why. Is because I too had a similar infomercial life-changing paradigm when I was sitting on the couch. It was when was this? This was 2009 going into 2010. Family's asleep. I'm there by myself. I'm not partying anymore. And Tony Robbins comes on. Not Tony Robbins. P90X. Who am I thinking of?
Oh God, what's his name?
Tony Horton. Tony Horton.
There you go. Yep.
Tony Horton comes on. I'm thinking, dude's jacked. I want to do what he does. Now I was a tennis player, and so I bought these CDs back in the day, the DVDs, I guess they were, and that literally led me to my life of fitness and understanding health and wellness. And I'm super excited that we're doing this today. So, what was it about that infomercial that really caught your eye? And because it sounds like before, there really wasn't a passion that you had found just yet. So, what was it that piqued your interest? Just curious.
Sure. So I was getting really into working out and lifting weights. I'd always played sports growing up. I don't look like it if you see me in person, but I was a basketball player. And so I found, I fell in love with the lifting weights and working out. And I was a nutrition major at the time because I discovered nutrition for bodybuilding reasons. And I saw the infomercial, and the biggest thing that I noticed is I was getting really angry when I was listening to the things that Kevin was saying, the author, about how, certain organizations, we don't need to go into the political aspects and all that stuff, but certain organizations, basically aren't doing what they say they're here to do. They're doing the opposite, right? And there's a lot of financial interest in that, and there's a lot of political interest in that, and, a lot of deliberately keeping us from attaining the health that we not only can achieve, but really deserve to have if we're willing to put in the work, right? And so he was talking about ways that we can empower ourselves. And, so I got angry on one hand, and that's one thing, and that can cause you to take action. But the thing that I liked about it was he was offering solutions too, and being productive. And I saw that as a really important mission, and it really just struck a chord with me. And I've always wanted to help people and make the world a better place in some capacity.
Right.
And it just hit me like a ton of bricks.
Right. And what is it? That was nearly 17 years ago.
Oh man, I didn't think about it that way.
17 years ago. And now look, here's what's really fascinating, because I'm bringing this up for a reason, the passion space. So many entrepreneurs, whether we coach them or we're in business with them, it's tough sometimes for them to find that passion. And I bet that you do what you do right now out of not only enjoyment for yourself for doing it, but watching what it does for other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, we all get caught in the grind, and, we get tired, and we get to the point where we need a vacation and stuff like that. Right. And that's normal human stuff. But, right when you're at that point, you'll see, I'll see something happen in my office where somebody is, completely out of pain, or they do something they've never done before, or whatever that is that really affects their quality of life, and then it's just like snap a finger and it's all back.
Yeah, that's so cool. I was chatting with one of my buddies not too long ago. We were everyone inside the I Love Coaching organization is called a tribe member, and every Friday we have what's called a tribal call. And he was talking about the difference between success and significance, and how significance, he went on to say, is you move behind and lift someone up and move them to that next level of success in their life. And again, knowing what you just shared there, I mean, it sounds like that's you're more of a significant player than a success player, it sounds like.
That's really cool. I really like that. And I think it's about serving other people too. I mean, I think true leadership is through service of others.
Yeah.
And offering, if you have a strength in something, being able to offer that to other people for their benefit.
Right.
And I think that's what it's all about, and regardless of what field you're in.
Right. For sure. So now let's talk about the health and wellness aspect of your vertical. So the chiropractic world. What is it about that world that impacts people both in the health and wellness space? And I'm going to be completely transparent here. I've never been to a chiropractor.
Oh man,
I've never been. So I might be coming to one of your shops in Mount Pleasant.
Oh man, pressure's on too.
And it's not because I don't want to go. I almost maybe don't know the reason to go. So talk to us, maybe even just have a conversation with me. What is it about the chiropractic world that would make me be better, would make me feel better, stronger, fitter, whatever it may be, right? What
Sure.
is that for?
That's a great question. And I think that's also the biggest problem that chiropractic as a profession has had in terms of getting our message out there and what we can offer to the community, because a lot of people really don't know. And, I'll be honest, I conceptually knew pretty quickly what it does and what it can offer. But, I'm almost 10 years into practice now. And I feel like every year I get a much deeper understanding of what that really means. And so I think if there's one thing, I mean, first of all, it's not just about cracking bones. And, there's a million different techniques out there for chiropractors to use and implement. And there's all sorts of other adjunctive therapies that different chiropractors offer, depending on where you go. So there's a lot of variety. It's like a lawyer, right? There's lots of different types of lawyers that have different specialties and different methodologies, right? But in terms of chiropractic, I think the big take-home message is, we deal with the nervous system. We don't necessarily deal with bones except for as a means to an end, right? So the nervous system is your brain and how your brain controls all of the other systems of the body, right? So like your brain's the CEO, right? And you have your spinal cord and your nerves that go to all the muscles, glands, and organs that run your body, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously you want that communication from your brain to whatever is on the other end of that nerve to be flowing optimally, right? That's the whole simplistic way of looking at it, if you're looking at it from a mechanistic standpoint, right?
Right.
But there's also this vitalistic way of looking at it where the nervous system can be in one of two states, all right? You can be in what's called fight or flight, and that's a term that I think a lot of us are familiar with, especially post-March 2020, right?
Sure.
And, so there's fight or flight, which is like survival mode, right? You're either, you're running away from the tiger or you're defending yourself or whatever it is metaphorically, right?
Right.
And then there's rest and digest, or like being at a state of ease, right? And they're both essential for our survival. We need both of those things. They're both good. They're not good and bad, right? There's just an appropriate time for each one. And the ideal way to be able to flow through life is to be able to go back and forth between those two modes when appropriate. And, the thing that I see is so many people nowadays, especially, I think more than ever, really get stuck in this fight or flight mode. And chiropractic is a way of taking that stress off the body, because once that stress builds up, then, we tilt just like pinball or a video game, right? We just tilt. Right. And that might manifest as neck pain or shoulder pain or back pain or indigestion or, MS or whatever that is. But the big take-home message I want people to understand about chiropractic is that we don't just move bones. We help the body work better as a whole. So it's really about putting the body into a state of ease so that you have this creative space. You can be creative, you can express love, you can do things physically that you might not have been able to do due to pain or restrictions or whatever. You can be in a place where you can feel empathy. I mean, anybody who's been in pain before, I mean, chronic pain, if you've ever dealt with somebody that's in chronic pain, they're typically pretty grumpy, and their fuse is very short, right? And it's easy for us to take that personally until we're in pain and we understand, like, they're coming from a whole different perspective, right? And so if you take somebody out of that, and pain is one thing, it's nice to get people out of pain, but the real magic to that is now they can be themselves and they can express who they're meant to be more fully. And that's really what chiropractic is about, is connecting you with yourself so that you can be more of you. And that's the thing that I think as a profession that we've really not done a great job, myself included, I'm going to put myself in there too, of getting out to the masses. I think if people understood that one concept, and, we even just said, hey, just come twice a year. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously I like people to come once a month for maintenance or whatever, but let's just say twice a year. And if people really understood that, we wouldn't be able to handle the amount of business we would have.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love this language, all of that language, the nervous system, the brain, the CEO, control system of the body. We have fight or flight, rest. You said rest and digest, right?
Rest, digest, and repair. I mean, if you want to talk about recovery between workouts or injuries or whatever.
Got it. And the last part I really love, I've never ever, I'm going to be your student here for a second. I've never heard and or even thought about connect with yourself to be even more of yourself. Right? A little bit of paraphrasing there, though. I've never heard or even thought about bringing the two together, chiropractic world and me becoming an even better version of myself. That's really okay. So now go into the practical application of it. So I'm coming to you and I'm saying, hey, doc, I want to become the best version of myself. I want my brain, the CEO of my body, to talk to the rest of my body the right way. What do we do? I come into you. I've seen on TikTok. I lay on a couch and you crack the shit out of all my bones. Right? No,
you've seen everything you need to know. That's it.
so what do we do? And then when we see those types of videos, right? If there is some cracking, which I'm sure there is, what's the good of that, right?
Sure. And I mean, everybody's different. So there's different chiropractors with different approaches, of course, but my approach is, first of all, you got to figure out where somebody's coming from, right? What their history is, what their background is, what their injuries are like, what their limitations are, are they mobile? Are they stiff? Can they even move? And regaining movement is so important because that's how our brain learns, is through movement. If you just watch little kids play, I mean, their movement is flawless. They can sit in a deep squat and play in the dirt and eat worms and whatever they're going to do. And then, so we all have that ability inherent, right? It's a natural movement pattern. Then we lose that stuff. So, movement is a big part of that. So I like to look at how people move, and there's a little assessment along with that. I always do some sort of a history, tell me what happened, when it happened, how it happened, that kind of thing. Go over that stuff. But then me personally, I like to get people on the table and start finding and fixing stuff. And I check everything head to toe. And there's lots of ways to do that. Again, there's lots of techniques out there. But I use something called applied kinesiology, which employs something called muscle testing. And, I realize that's a lot of technical jargon, but basically it's just a way for me to get feedback from the body. The brain sends electrical signals, and so I can use that to test a muscle and see if it's strong or if it's weak. And let's say I test a shoulder muscle, if I have somebody hold their arm straight out in front of them, and I push down and that shoulder is strong, well, then I know I've got a good circuit, right? And then I can use that and press on their problem area and see what type of pressure causes that previously strong muscle to go weak. And that tells me, Houston, we have a problem, right? And so it's just a way to get feedback and go through all the different areas of the body and find and fix and clear stuff out. And so the body can function properly. One of the analogies I use is you're trying to drive with the parking brake on. So I'm going to take the parking brake off and then you can drive properly.
Right. That's good. So you really get in there and pay attention to the body as it relates to how is it functioning? How is it working? And how do we make it work even better?
Absolutely.
Oh,
I mean,
that's phenomenal.
I try to be, it's head to toe, really thorough. I like to spend more time with people than a typical chiropractor does. And again, there's lots of different ways to do it, and none are better or worse or anything. But I like to get in there and figure out exactly what's going on, what it relates to, and find the cause of the problem. And then based on that, what I do with everybody is I give them exercises or homework, I call it, to do outside of the office. And the way I like simple analogies. So chiropractic is just Legos, right? I'm putting the Legos back together where they belong. And I love Legos, by the way. So I put the Legos together and so that, you can move properly. And then your job when you go home is to do exercises to glue the Legos together. And that's the 30,000 foot view. It really is that simple. And the more glue you use, the more the Legos will stay together over time. Now, if you're dealing with somebody who's an athlete and they're doing all kinds of stuff, well, that's fine. I mean, they're moving more, they might be lifting heavy or moving extremely fast or getting tackled or whatever it is. And so things are going to happen. And that's just how life works. And that's okay. Right. And it's just like if you drive a car, eventually you're going to need an alignment and an oil change and a filter change and whatever. And that's your basic maintenance. So I try to teach people that anything you obtain, you need to maintain when it comes to your body.
Right. Love that. So curious to be proactive, right? All right. So let me share with you where my brain's going. So I have two kids. They're extremely active in the tennis world. They go to a tennis academy. They play tennis literally 6 hours a day. We have tournaments coming up this weekend. They're 13 and 11, right? So now my brain goes back to your visual that kids are limber. Kids can get in that crisscross applesauce and stand up from there, right? They can do all those types of things. And I'm 45 and I enjoy exercising. I enjoy a good run or a good walk, enjoy some surfing, do all those types of things, but I'm definitely not as limber as them. So where do you find, like, for example, would it be beneficial for me to bring the kids in even at that age to be proactive, or is there a certain time when you would recommend someone coming in so that they're not going to be in pain 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years later?
That's an awesome question. So to answer that, my youngest patient ever was 2 weeks old. Wow. And just really briefly about her, she was rotated as she was coming out of the birth canal. So the doctor had to twist her and then pull. And I mean, anybody who's witnessed a birth knows it's a real pull, right?
Yeah, it's aggressive. Yeah.
Yes, it's very aggressive. So her head was kind of fixated to one side. And because of that, she was having trouble latching and breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. And what was really cool was her mom has been a patient of mine for years, super active, does CrossFit, all kinds of stuff. And her mom actually took her to the chiropractor after she was born. And so I didn't even have to say anything. She just scheduled an appointment for her newborn daughter. And, obviously on a 2-week-old, the technique's very gentle. It's nothing like what you would see on TikTok. But I was able to, basically get her head, so it wasn't fixated anymore. And then she was able to latch and breastfeed. So there's that example. That's like the extreme example, right?
Sure.
But, as far as being proactive, well, think about it this way. The average child by age 13 has already had 1,000 traumas. So, even at that point, you could argue that it's not even proactive anymore. It's reactive, right?
Right.
And, they might be feeling great because especially at that age, I mean, man, to be that age again and just fall and bounce back up and just keep going. Right. Oh, I miss those days.
Me too.
I used to skateboard a lot when I was your kid's age, and I was pretty good. I could ollie onto a picnic table and do some pretty cool stuff. And I tried again, like in my late 20s. I went to the skate park with my buddy, and of course, we work out. We've both put on like 50 pounds of muscle and age, right? Right. And I take one fall from like a 6-inch high ollie, and I was done for the day. It was like total, just completely different experience. So, I mean, I don't necessarily have a practice of just seeing kids, but I do see a lot of kids, and it's really cool to watch. I mean, I always find stuff. I mean, nobody comes in the office perfect. So, being proactive is great in terms of if you already feel good, keeping that way. But trust me, if anybody goes into anybody's office, there's going to be stuff out of place somewhere.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. That question kind of came from your Legos analogy there and the glue, right? and I love that. I'm a visual guy, and so I was putting the Legos together in my head and thinking about the glue. And again, as the kids continue to progress, let's just say kids in general, through sports, my nephews are football players, right? And they're 10, 11, 12 years old. You would think even then, and I love what you said, 13 years old, there's been 1,000 traumas. That glue is already probably starting to come off a little bit.
Oh, sure. And then you add in, the food that we have today, that's a whole nother conversation. And then
Right.
the school environment, stress, testing, anxiety, and all of these social pressures that kids go through too. I mean, now more than ever, especially with social media. I mean, I can't imagine having social media going through like elementary, middle, high school. Oh my gosh. Like, thank God, because like I did some stuff that nobody will ever find out about. Right. I mean, now everything's recorded and there's just so much pressure on kids today. So, but it's really cool to watch because I mean, kids have stuff out of place just like adults do, but they heal so quickly.
Right.
And they recover so much faster. So it's really cool to see, and it gets to a point, and I'm not saying this to, brag or anything like that, but it gets to a point where they try to convince their parents like, hey, I want to go back. They kind of get this whole thing where like, they know that they want to be there because they're going to feel better. And they just get it. And it's really cool.
Well, and again, that kind of goes back to connect with itself to be even better of themselves, right? That's really, really neat here. Okay, so our listeners love action items, right? Our guests tell our listeners what to do. So I want you to tell our listeners right now what to do. What should they go do as it relates to your vertical in the chiropractic space? If you're in Mount Pleasant, your asses are going to go see Dr. Mike right now. Okay, I'm going to be the one. He's not going to say it. I'm going to say it. Go see him because I'm going to go see him myself. So give us some action items. What should we do from your expertise here?
I think the biggest things are, simple things, right? Drink lots of water, right? Start with half your body weight in ounces per day. And then if you're active or it's hot out or you sweat, add to that. Movement is so important. I think one of the biggest things that chiropractic does really well that Western medicine has not done really well. Don't get me wrong. If you've got a gunshot, a bone sticking out of your leg, or a heart attack, you're going to the hospital because we've got the best for that, right? But when it comes to chronic pain and chronic injuries, there's got to be a better way than just drugs and surgery, right? Sure. So I think chiropractic really does a great job, as well as PT and a lot of other things, acupuncture, massage, but having some sort of self-care regimen. And you guys are into coaching, right? So think of me or another chiropractor as a coach, right? Yep. There's an accountability piece by coming, especially if somebody's coming once a month for wellness. I'm going to ask them, have they been moving? Have they been doing their exercises? What are their stress levels like? Are they thinking about doing some sort of breath work or meditation or yoga or something? What's their diet like? Are they eating healthy food? All of these things come into play. But drinking lots of water, moving every day. I don't care if it's just a walk, if you like to ride a bike, surf, lift weights, tennis, whatever it is, do something every day. The body is designed to move. Yep. And a lot of these chronic things that a lot of people have, they don't get better with rest. And resting doesn't heal anything. The body's meant to move. And actually, the way that we keep our organs healthy is through physically moving our bodies. We are the pump. And that's how you clean your organs. You cycle your blood and your lymphatic fluid through the body. You get toxins out of the body and you regenerate by movement. So that's a big one. The whole point of doing an adjustment is so that, and I always tell my patients this, go do something after this. Go for a walk, go work out, go play tennis, go play golf. Because if you get everything put back in place and then you move, that's good feedback for the brain. It knows where everything is. So it's going to solidify all that stuff and it just makes it last longer. Even from a business standpoint, how cool is that if we can fix problems quicker and then that person's going to go tell two people,
Totally. Yeah.
And you're doing right by people and you're offering value. So those are big ones. I always say like the nervous system's like a bucket that holds water, right? And life happens and the stresses that come towards us are the water that go in the bucket, right? And as the water level rises, and that starts to spill over, that's when we tilt, right? And we have these, aches and pains and symptoms and whatever it is. And so what I try to educate people on is I want to be a drain for your bucket, right? So, and then, whether you eat healthy or you work out or you meditate or go to a massage therapist or a chiropractor or whatever, those are all drains for your bucket. So you can filter that water out, ideally at the same rate or greater as it's coming in, and then you can flow through life and kind of stay in balance, which is what the body wants, right? And so being mindful of that is huge too. And I think that offers a lot of people value if they just have, awareness of it and they can think, oh, well, if I just take a couple deep breaths, I can kind of come back down a little bit out of the red zone and just kind of reboot,
Right. This is got a whole page of notes here, my friend.
That's awesome. I hope that's helpful.
It is extremely helpful, and I have no doubt our listeners are listening, and I'm going to tell our listeners what to do. Pause, rewind, start over, and listen to this again, because this has been incredible. I'm glad we saved the best for last year on our wellness series in the I Love Coaching, because this has been super simple, super fun, and also very, very informative. Oh, last question. This is totally for me. Again, what does it mean when we hear the cracks when we were at a chiropractor? I mean, I've always wanted to know is that like popping your knuckles? What does that mean?
So the crack, or a cavitation, is the official term for it, right? It's really just gas releasing from the joint. So think about it this way. This is a very overly simplistic way of putting it. But let's say we've got two bones and they're kind of stuck in a position and they can't move like they would normally, right? And you release that, there's going to be a gas bubble that releases from that. Just kind of like if you're in a shallow creek or river and you rub your foot on the bottom and like the bubbles come up to the surface.
Interesting. Okay.
So,
good. Okay, good. I thought you were going to go something else there with gas bubbles, but I'm glad you did. That was kind of fun. Yeah, we could. So how can people come find you? How can they come follow you? How can they come into your shop and get adjusted so they can become the best version of themselves? Sell yourself. Go for it.
Sure. The easiest way to find me, I am on Instagram at Dr. Mike Batla, Dr. Mike Batla. Batla is Batla. I'll be honest, I haven't posted in a long time, so I need to up my social media game. And believe it or not, I've hired a coaching firm to help me do that.
Nice.
So there's a little plug for you guys. And then my website is Dr. Batla.com, and that's Batla. And that's the easiest place to find me. It's pretty simple. I used to be on Facebook a whole lot more, doing lives and just kind of giving tips, tricks, and hacks. But I'll be honest, it's just been so busy this last couple of years that I've kind of lost track of that a little bit. But as I bring on another doctor and kind of expand things a little bit, that's going to get picked back up. So the website's great. Instagram, I've got a couple things on there, but either one of those.
Gotcha. Perfect. And so two things I want to end with here. Number one, you said you give homework. I believe you've given Caroline some homework to stand up when she's at the office. And I'm going to tell you, she's been sitting down. So I'm going to call her.
Oh man, we need to talk to her.
Get her.
And then I've got something called the workday workout too. For people that work at a desk, all you need is a resistance band. And it's just 2 exercises with a resistance band. And one of them's for your upper body, one of them's for your hips and lower body. And the idea is you do about 20 seconds worth of stuff about every hour or so, and it just resets your posture. It unsits your body, basically. So stuff like that.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, Mike, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate all the information that you've given us here. This has been one of my favorite podcasts, and I don't say that all the time. I'm dead serious. I love this health and wellness stuff, and you brought it, man. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, Adam, thank you so much for having me. I hope you guys get something out of this. I hope this was helpful. And again, I really appreciate it. And it's great to meet you.
Definitely was. Yeah, likewise. And everybody, so again, my name is Adam Roach. I have been your podcast host today. Go check us out at ilovecoachingcode.com. Go get a free coaching call from us. And as I know you love this podcast, go give us a review. Go like us, go give us a review, and download this show and go share with all of your friends. Take care. See you guys. Bye.